here from pickinglessons.com. In this mandolin lesson, we're going to take a look at a chord melody version of the Christmas carol, the First Noel. We're in the key of D. We're going to take a look at the D major scale that we're using for this particular melody, where it sits. We're also going to have a look at the chord voicings that we're using, and we're also going to have a look at options for what we could choose for our chords with the melody note on top. So at any given time with any particular melody note from the D major scale, you have three choices of triads. We'll get into that and we'll talk about how that works. Alright, but if you head to pickinglessons.com, you'll be able to get yourself a copy of the tablature that we're going to be working from. Now in the next lesson we'll cover the melody and how we're playing it, and that follow-up lesson will be at pickinglessons.com with the tablature and the charts we're working from. You also have a play along and a backing track there as well, so pickinglessons.com. So firstly, here in this video, what we're going to do is take a look at the D major scale, and firstly, where we're playing that D major scale for this particular melody is here, starting on the D on string 2, running up all on string 1. So our D major scale primarily is on string 1, kicking off on the D on string 2 there, fret 5. So one more time, the D major scale. And so if we just listen to the melody for a start, that's where the melody's sitting, pretty much on that top string. Now we could do that differently if we were just playing a single note melody like that, of course we could. But what we're going to be doing here in this arrangement is adding in chords. So by leaving the melody on that first string, what that's allowing us to do is to grab 3 notes below that pretty comfortably. We've got some of the same voicings, we're moving up and down, and it's convenient for what we're doing here. It's also just the nature of what the melody is doing in this particular tune. So the D major scale, now we can harmonize those notes with, I guess, the standard chord found for that position of the scale. So for example, a D note, play a D chord. The E note, play the E minor. The F sharp would be the F sharp minor. When we're up to the G, would be the G chord. Now, that's sort of root note position, and that's great. But what we're trying to do is keep the melody on top of our chord and then make a choice of chord or harmony with that particular melody note. So at any given time in our scale, let's take D as an example, we have 3 options just with a basic major or minor chord, a 3-note chord, triad. So with a D, if our melody note has D on top, this first example here, we could use a D major chord, voice like this, there's the D on top. We could play a G chord with that D on top. So there's a D note in the G chord, a B minor chord as well. So the B minor has a D note in it, so we could voice it perhaps like this. So if we kicked off the First Noel, I've chosen to use the D major chord voicing in this arrangement, which we'll check out later. But we could also choose perhaps to use the G. It'll give it a different flavour though. Different flavour. Good or bad, it's just a different choice. The B minor could be an option as well. So that's kind of interesting, but the strong, we're in the key of D, the strong choice there sounded like the D major. But there's always more than one choice. So it's really interesting. If we took another example, what if we jump up to the F sharp note in the scale? So we could pick out some voicings with the F sharp. So firstly, the F sharp is on top of a D chord. If we play it in this voicing there, like the open position D. The F sharp's also included in the B minor chord. So we could play a B minor perhaps like this. A prettier voicing. So there's an F sharp on top there. And then we could also play, what else we got there? The F sharp minor, we've covered that. So that's the choice we have. Up the neck, perhaps if we go to the A position, we have obviously an A triad we could play. There's an A in the A chord. There's also an A note in the D major chord. So we perhaps could play a voicing like this, perhaps like this, or even this one would be nice. The A on top there. And also the A note is included in the F sharp minor chord. So if we found a way of playing that voicing, we would get, which we come across in the song as well. Okay, so you can see that the D major scale, and as we're moving through this, if we take just a basic triad approach, you have 3 options. Now, which one do you choose? Well, you can experiment actually. Once you start to get your fingers around and thinking around how this works, you could make different choices at different times. And throughout the arrangement, I've made several different choices. When we could have gone one way, I've gone a different way. Whether you like that choice or you think it might be a different choice you want to make, that's all, I guess, up to the player. And that's the great thing about this. We do have options. And once you can see those options, you can certainly experiment for yourself. So have a think about how the D note, for example, fits inside 3 different chords, being the D, the G, and the B minor. And do that for the other scale notes. You'll find when you're starting to think about how can you harmonize against the melody, you'll find that there are choices. Sometimes it's a really strong and obvious choice. Other times, perhaps you can vary it, like the relative minor, for example. So in this D note example, a strong choice is still a B minor, albeit on a minor type sound. So the B minor would be relative to D, the 6th chord there. So really interesting. Now, if you head to pickinglessons.com, we will break down the melody and we'll have a look at what we're doing there. We'll take it slowly. We'll look at the chord shapes we're using and all the voicings that are in this particular arrangement. You've also got that backing track there so you can play along with that guitar part as you're practicing. So pickinglessons.com, and I'll see you there.